Hey everyone, and welcome. Today, we're going to break down the three big pillars for writing professional, reusable Terraform code. That's variables, locals, and outputs. So let's just jump right in.
But first, I've got a question for you. There's one specific detail about all this that interviewers absolutely love to use as a trap. Stick with me here because by the end of this, you're going to know the answer, and you'll never get tripped up by it again.
All right, here's the game plan. We'll start with the big ideas, then we'll dive deep into each one of these pillars. After that, we'll see how they all work together in the real world, and then we'll wrap up by making sure you can absolutely nail that next interview. By the end, we're not just going to understand this stuff, we're going to master it.
Okay, let's kick things off with the big picture. These three concepts, variables, locals, and outputs, are the absolute bedrock for writing infrastructure as code that you can actually scale and maintain. Look, if you take away just one thing today, let it be this. This is the simplest way to get it straight in your head. Variables are your inputs. They're the front door for your data. Locals are your helpers, kind of like your assistants working behind the scenes. And outputs, that's the final result you show to the world.
All right, so let's dig into our first pillar, variables. You know, the whole reason these things even exist is to stop us from doing something terrible in our code, hard coding values, which just makes everything rigid and a total pain to reuse.
So a variable's main job is to pull values out of your code. Instead of, typing an AMI ID or the region US East 1 directly into your resource block, which, yikes, you define a variable. That simple change instantly makes your code flexible, configurable, and ready for any environment, whether it's dev, staging, or production.
Okay, this is super important. Terraform has a very strict pecking order for where it gets its variable values. And here's the key thing to remember. Terraform never merges these. The one on top, the command line flag, completely stomps out everything below it. This trips a lot of people up, so really lock this one in.
And, because variables are so central, it's really easy to make a few common mistakes. We're talking about everything from the simple stuff, like accidentally hard-coding a region, to the really dangerous stuff, like checking your secret keys into Git inside a .tfbars file. Not good.
So, to help us avoid that last one, Terraform gives us this handy little attribute, sensitive equals true. When you pop this on a variable, say for a database password, Terraform will just show sensitive in your terminal instead of the actual value. It's a fantastic first line of defense.
But, and this is a big but, here's where that interview trap comes back into play. Marking something as sensitive is great, but there's a huge limitation. What's the one thing it does not do?
And here it is. It does not encrypt or hide the value in the Terraform state file. I'll say that again. The state file always stores the real, raw, unmasked value. It's right there in plain text. This is the ultimate gotcha question interviewers love to use to see if you really know your stuff. All right, pillar number 2, locals. So if variables are your inputs from the outside world, locals are your internal helpers. They're all about keeping your code clean and dry. Don't repeat yourself. So what are they good for? Well, they're amazing for things like creating standardized resource names, so everything follows the same pattern. They're also perfect for defining a standard set of tags that you want on all your resources. Or maybe you've got this super long, ugly expression, you can just wrap it up in a local and give it a nice, clean name. It just makes your code so much easier to read. And boom, here's another classic interview question. What's the real difference between a variable and a local? And the answer is simple. A variable is an input. It comes from the outside, and you can change it. A local? That's a computed value. It's born inside your code, and you can't change it from the outside. That's it. If you want the perfect one-liner, variables are for input, locals are for computation.
Okay, let's talk about our third and final pillar, outputs. Once Terraform has built all your cool stuff, outputs are how you get information back out of it, like an IP address or a database connection string.
And this right here is their killer feature. They let you glue your modules together. So imagine you have one module that builds your network, your VPC. It can output the VPC's ID. Then, back in your main code, you can grab that ID and feed it into another module, maybe one that creates a server inside that specific network. See? It's the plumbing that connects everything.
And you guessed it, that same critical rule about the state file applies here too. You can mark an output as sensitive and it'll hide it from your screen, but that password or secret key, yep, still sitting in plain text right inside the state file. All right, we've broken down each piece individually. Now let's put it all together and see how the pros use these three things in harmony to build some really elegant, maintainable infrastructure.
A really solid professional workflow usually looks something like this. First, you standardize your inputs with variables for things like project and env. Then, you use locals to cook up consistent names for everything. Next, you make sure every single resource gets the right tags by merging in a local map. And finally, you use outputs to pass those critical IDs from one module to the next. It's like a beautiful, automated dance.
Okay, time to bring it all home. This is your interview prep. Let's lock in the key takeaways so you can absolutely nail these questions when they come up.
All right, question 1, the classic. They're going to ask you this to see if you really get the core job of each piece, not just the syntax. And here's how you answer it perfectly. Simple. Variables are for input, getting data from the outside. Locals are for computation, simplifying logic on the inside. And outputs are for results, exposing data back to the outside. That's it. It's clean, it's confident, and it's 100% correct. Okay, next up, the security question. This is where they test if you just know the theory or if you actually understand how to handle sensitive information in the real world. The right answer here isn't just one thing, it's a multi-layered strategy. You'd say something like, first, you use environment variables in a CI/CD pipeline so secrets are never committed to the code repository. Second, you integrate directly with a secrets manager, like Vault or AWS Secrets Manager. And third, you make sure your remote state file itself is encrypted at rest. That is the full professional-grade answer.
And that really brings us to the final, most important point. Look, knowing that the state file has your secrets in plain text, that's not just a fun fact for an interview. It's a wake-up call. So the real question I want to leave you with is this. Now that you know what's really in there, how are you going to change the way you secure it?